Okay, this week's discussion is on abortion and kind of looking at abortion from Judith Thompson as well as Noonan. So, just quickly to kind of reflect on their perspective on abortion, Noonan mentions that abortion is only permissible if it's being done to save the mother's life. Anything outside of that would be considered selfish and neglecting of the babies or the unborn or the underdeveloped human interest. Because according to Noonan, right after conception, the baby or the potential being now possesses generic codes to eventually become a human being. Therefore, aborting for any reason other than to save the mother's life would be a violation of their interest. Where Judith Thompson took a different approach, she used different analogies to kind of compare these scenarios. Her particular approach is a little bit, it took a little bit of time to kind of really understand it. She kind of used the approach where you woke up attached to a violinist and you're told that you have to be attached to this violinist for like 9 months for him to survive, and whether you should feel compelled to do so or whether you should feel obligated to do so. A few things kind of stood out in her approach. I guess what she tried to do is to use that particular story to compare to pregnancy due to rape, where women will find themselves pregnant for unwanted sexual encounter. Then she kind of dived in the difference between just and unjust and decent and indecent. Just because something is not, just because something is indecent doesn't mean it's unjust. Basically, that's what I understood from it. Like for example, I can choose not to. If the violinist is hooked up to me, I can choose not to let him stay hooked up to me to stay alive. It's not necessarily unjust, but it's just indecent. To kind of going back to other analogies that she looked at, named the extreme view, where what she's trying to say is, okay, if there should be no reason why abortion should be justified, even in the case that the mother's life is on the line, because if you were to abort the baby for the mother's life, then you're violating the baby's rights as well, because she believes that it's never okay to kill an innocent person to save another person. Then kind of going through the rape worksheet, which is kind of extensive. Three of them stood out to me. I think it was Q, and that's pretty much kind of in a nutshell says that a woman chooses to abort because having a baby at the time would interfere with her career goals, which again, I'm pretty sure is a very common reason. And then K, which pretty much said that if you found out that the baby would have a fatal disease, that they would eventually die, relatively young, would it be then permissible to abort? And of course, just like the one we mentioned, if the mother's life, which is G, if the mother has cervical cancer and things like that, she needed to get her uterus removed, which would require the baby to be aborted, would this also be justifiable? So in these three scenarios, obviously you have three completely different conflicts. And it kind of goes back to, if you're looking at this from Thompson, which she feels that the right to life is not necessarily absolute. There's no way to say that the baby's right to life supersedes all of the carrier's desires. So initially for the career, I think that one is least permissible because although it can have some implications to have a baby at a young age, I don't think that your career is worth justifying a baby's life. The fatal disease one, at first I was kind of more so leaning towards, I guess that would be somewhat just, because then if you have the baby, if you know the baby is going to be subjected to a life of illness, pain, and suffering, then why put the baby through that and put yourself through that? It just seemed like it would be easier to have the baby. And both of these viewpoints, Noonan and Thompson, I kind of share some of their perspective. So it wasn't that my ratings changed as much, but I just found these three particular ratings a little bit more difficult. And of course, a mother's life, you can argue that she needs to be here for other kids and other family members, and for her to lose her life for a child might be a bit hard to deal with. And it's going to impact way more people than that particular being. Thank you.